Hey everyone, this is going to be part 2 to my previous video on what happens when we die, life and death, or life before and after death. I will link it below so you can watch that if you haven't seen it already. I recorded that January 27th. It was one of those moments where I felt like I had to do it right then. It reminds me of the Kinda Good Kinda Bad video that I did, where it was just this immediate calling in me, like, stop putting it off anymore, stop what you're doing, you need to go record that. It's very important that you do that and you release it. So that is why it was so rushed, and it felt very urgent. Okay, this video, it's the 28th, all right. I'm gonna release this upcoming Wednesday, just to kind of cover a couple more concepts that I feel I want to discuss with regards to that previous video. There, like, throughout me recording, on YouTube, I will talk about more subjects with regards to this, but I feel like there's a little bit more that I want to uncover that I didn't feel like I did at the time. So what happens when we die, and like who do we see, like what, like more of like the spiritual aspect of things, I guess, and then even just us as like human beings, and like, are those people still here with us? Like, are the people that have passed away, our loved ones, can we still connect to them? Is that real? And what part of them is that? And so on and so forth, right? And so I will start by saying, like, the concept of object permanence, right, with babies, I feel can be witnessed in the way that we can oftentimes perceive the human experience, where this is the end-all be-all in a lot of ways of who we identify ourselves with, right? So with a baby, when you're as a baby, you have a little toy and you believe that that's your world. That's what you identify with. That is part of you. It's an extension of you. And when you remove the toy, or someone removes the toy, the baby starts getting very, very upset. The baby feels like you took a piece of them away. They don't understand that is still around. It's just in another room. They don't understand, that is not who they are. Like, they don't have to identify with this toy. And so that you can see in concepts of people who cross over, and the object permanence of who they identify with in this world, and how they eventually re-evolve, because this is just a temporary thing, right? Well, if you believe the same concepts of me, of like reincarnation, of existing in other areas of everywhere, and so, yeah, this is just it's very small. And so you start detaching from all of the concepts that you've learned, right? That you've conditioned yourself, or people have conditioned here, or all kinds of things. What I was pausing on that is because I was thinking about, like, the toxicities within the world, like whatever is in like pollution and the foods and all that, all those toxins have to be also pulled from our soul in a way, is what I see. And so then that's where that realization comes back in, and people make peace with their life. People make peace with their experiences. And then you can see it as a human being who has people who've crossed over. And I'm not talking about like grieving is normal. Grieving is it's part of us, right? It's part of how we grow as people, how we love as people, how we experience and empathize and sympathize with people. That is a tragic thing, but there's something very, very beautiful, and it rips open your heart in a way that we can all relate to in some ways. Even the darkest person, I feel, they grieve They love and grieve too. It's just sometimes they can try and suppress that. But anyway, so you're grieving a lost one, right? Someone that you love very much. And beyond that is sometimes for people, no matter how firm that you feel your faith is, it does feel challenged during those times. Not everyone, but it's that's normal too. It's challenging it because you don't have that person in the physical world anymore, and then you're pulling in your mind or around you in your awareness, like, where are you? Where are you? Let me feel you. Let me see you. Let me experience you again. Don't leave me. Stay here. Do you see me? Do you hear me? Do you approve of me? Do you love me? All of these questions start stirring up, right? And it's frightening in a way because our awareness is so limited as a human being. So limited. And I can show you, like, you know how I talked about, like, this is our soul, like this whole thing's our soul, right? And then, like, this is the human life. So it kind of feels like a heavy mass. Like, you think of a collapsing star, right? The stars collapse, and then it puts all that energy from the star into the debris, right? It concentrates all that mass into that object. All the energy from this strong thing, the strong star, collapses and puts all the power into this little bit of mass. It's so heavy, right? And then it just goes off and goes crazy. And that's the human being. Like, we're mass. We're heavy of all of us trying to get into this little thing. And so, what was I getting with that? We're all just walking around like little shooting stars, I guess. But that's where our awareness is set, is in this physical world, right? And so these spiritual moments that we have, these connections that we have, that exist, like genuinely, like, oh, I was thinking about you, and you just so happen to call me, I haven't heard from you in so long, like stuff like that. Like, that is our soul. That is what this is. That's the connectors, right? Those, like, energetic connectors of this strong. It's like we can't ever be. I'm just thinking about how grand we are. I guess that's what's distracting me right now, is like, we are so grand as, like, a human being. We're so grand, and yet so, like, it's kind of like, it's just, I'm just thinking, like, how silly to ever feel like we're ever less than when we are just so much more. But anyway, yeah, so we have this experience, this identity that we have known in this life since we were born, of who we are, and all the conditioning that we've put onto ourselves and other people have put onto ourselves. And so when something, this mass, like this person, leaves their lives, they're gone, they no longer exist in the physical world. But that doesn't mean that their identity is gone. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's just this little reality of who they are that is no longer existing, right? Like, that is true, that when someone passes away, they are no longer here as that person. That physical body is no longer here. But spiritually, they're still here. They have always been here. They were just a little tiny part, like, you understand me? Like, are they here? Like, let's put it in that way. Like, someone that you love, if you've ever had anyone pass away that you love, are they here with you? Absolutely. They've always been here. In fact, the way that you saw them as who they were as a human being was very limited to how they were all actually, who they actually are. Just like you are much bigger than who you think that you are right now, for the most part. You know, like, everyone's different. Everyone varies on how they can perceive themselves. But you are also everywhere at once. In a lot of ways. In a lot of ways. And so when you want to communicate, or you are communicating with someone that you love, they haven't gone anywhere. They're not gone. It's just their physical body, their vessel of how they communicate, right? I mean, I'll even link my body as a vessel because I think that kind of ties into this as well. But it's like, watch that video as well. That'll add on to this if you haven't seen it. But yeah. That's kind of just all I really wanted to say. Well, also, like, okay, so what happens, like, from the human perception when you pass away? And I've said everyone's different, it depends on the person, but generally speaking, right? And it's like, it's not as scary. It can be scary for people because of how attached they are to this little identity. Right? It's how attached they are to this identity. And eventually, as they evolve, which they're going to be remembering who they are, right? And depending on all these other factors, how much they truly remember, but that brings them inner peace. Again, generalizing, but it's not like the average person. The reason I generalize is because there's some really, really dark-sided people in the world, and that has a whole nother subject. But for the majority of us, this is where they come back into awareness, right? And they make peace with their life. They make peace with letting go of that identity as who they were, right? How that transition happens to the other side, normally what I see is people will greet them. Like your guardian angels, your divinely appointed guardian angels, your soul family, who have either crossed over or who have stayed crossed over, right? And with soul family, it's like it's a non-biological, it could be biological family, but we have such a big family, so it's non-biological, where they're very close to you. Like if this is your soul, like the soul family, they're people who through lifetimes kind of have a similar trajectory as you. So you share many lifetimes with these people, and you help each other become fully aware of your wholeness, of your glory, of your holiness, your beauty, all of that. And so they greet you, comfort you. There is this feeling of safety, of compassion, of love and peace that you feel, where they usher you. They don't rush. It's like you can take your time, but they try to help bring you into this awareness that it has been your time to go, and that there's some things that you need to understand from this and to observe. And in that moment, as you've crossed over, I don't see sadness, because it's like when you're surrounded by such peaceful energy, it's too high vibrational for you to feel that grief. It's too much. It's and your understanding, your awareness, even if you're not intellectually understanding it at the time, because you're still more human than you are of spirit, it pulls you towards that feeling of calmness. And again, it's like it's a shock, but it's a way to preserve and protect you. And if there are people that, as a human being, that you've identified with, right, and that you want to greet you, right, that you love, like that are close to you, if it's their time to be there for you as you cross, then they will like superimpose themselves as how you as a human identify them as. That way you feel safer. You feel like it's a way for you to understand even more. And so I can give an example, like I've said in my last video, of like people that I knew were gonna die. Like an animals are, I don't know why I pick up on that. It's like I'll randomly think of someone's animal, and it would be like someone totally, like it would be like a friend's parents' dog. That was one of the examples. And I had not thought about them for a very long time, and I just thought about their dog, and then like shortly after, they took their dog to the hospital and it passed away. And then I had someone else close to me, I saw their dog, and that's why I thought that I was just perceiving, which it could be different, but I was perceiving like the dog was in pain, like something was wrong, but you couldn't tell. It was something hereditary or something. It was some rare thing that these dogs have. But I had this like quick vision, and I looked at the dog. And I saw like the arm, you know, they shaved the arms to put the IV. I saw the arm, and I'm like, it was like quick. I'm like, what? Like, did the dog? I don't know what was. And then that night, they had taken their dog to the hospital. I think it was like she could see. It's like she could read me, reading the dog. Like there was something weird. And then I even like offhandedly said like, maybe you should take the dog, you know, just like, and then it ended up, you know, passing. Those are like animal experiences that I could just think of off the top of my head. But there was this girl that I was really, really good friends with. Okay. And, we went our separate ways, and I ended up running into her one night, and I was with a group of my other friends, and you know, we just kind of like briefly talked to each other, and then we ended up leaving at the same time. And I was driving one of my friends, and I saw this other girl outside of where we were at a club. I saw her outside of this nightclub, and I went up and talked to her, and I started like shaking. I was shaking. And I was like, something, like in my head, I'm like, something's not right here. Like she's gonna die. Like she's gonna die. And I'm like panicking. And I saw, basically like, I ended up seeing that she was about to get on a motorcycle, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is not right. She would never do this. Like it felt so wrong. And the last words I said to her were, are you not scared? And she was like, yes. And she didn't end up dying that night, but I was like, okay, whatever. Well, I did say, okay, whatever. That was like the last words. And I went to my friend, and I'm like literally shaking, and I'm like so panicked. I'm like, this isn't right. Like, she's gonna be hurt. Like, I can feel it. I can feel it so strongly. Like, she shouldn't be doing this. And I feel like in that moment, like I said in the last video, like sometimes your guardian angels can speak through other people. I don't feel that that was necessarily me perceiving it as myself. I mean, yes, obviously I interpret it in a certain way, but I feel like that was I feel like it was her guardian angels like speaking through me as a warning. And so months later, this was in another state. I was in Vegas at the time, so we were like far away. And I had this feeling one night of like death. Like, I just kept thinking about death. And my friend had sent me a photo of him, and he was what is it called? Like when you mountain climb, but like in the snow. He was like in some like crazy place where they have to like trek. They're trekking like overnight, and you could see the stars so clearly, and you could see how cold and like desolate it was. But it made me, I don't know, I kept thinking, it made me think about it even harder. And the last thing I said that night was, it looks like death. And then I went to bed and I had this dream, and it was from her perspective. And I saw everything. And then I found out that she was killed the next day, a motorcycle accident. And she was killed with the person that I saw her that night with, at the nightclub. And so I feel like I don't know. I don't actually know. I don't think that she was like telling me that she died. I think that it was just kind of me picking up on her energy. Because, you know, I guess because I'm perceptive, I guess. And because I had such a strong connection to her already. And yeah, so in that moment though, I did feel at peace, like as she died, actually right before she died, right a little bit before she died, like she knew, she was like, I'm gonna die, but it was peaceful. It was a tragic accident. It was a very violent accident, but she already knew. So yeah, another reason why I'm sharing that is because, you know, it doesn't really matter the range of how things happen, but the majority of the time you already make peace with it, you know? Like, even if on the outside, like the physical way that it is observed is different, spiritually it is different as well. Hopefully, I feel like, I don't know why, it's like there's something that I want to say, but then last time I recorded and this time it just escapes me, it evades me each time. But I guarantee when I get off camera I'm gonna remember what it is that I wanted to say. But I guess maybe it's just not the right time to talk about it. I don't know. But yeah, I don't really want to end on that kind of note. Like, it seems kind of like a terrible note to end on. But, you know, yeah, I don't, I'm just gonna probably end it on that note. I apologize if that seemed kind of down, but it's not. I swear it's not. But maybe it's just a little bit of food for thought for you guys. But anyway, thank you for watching. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.